Hello, hi guys, and welcome to another session with me, Tom Harrop, founder of TJ Tutors. Today, what we're going to be doing is working on how to manage time effectively in exams. Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're going to be really going through how to kind of just really understand the importance of time management. We're going to practice working on some of the Vipers reading skills with extracts related to time pressure, and then we're going to try and apply these strategies to manage our reading, writing, and thinking time effectively. Okay, so first things first, really, have you ever run out of time in a test? Have you ever had a problem with running out of time to get the kind of high mark answers? Have you found that there is a moment in time where you are kind of stuck, you're wasting time, you don't really know kind of how to answer the question, and you're kind of panicking at that point? Well, if that is the case, then hopefully today we're going to be kind of working on how you can sort of combat that and build up your skill. So what's your biggest time wasting habit in exams? That's the main thing we need to start thinking about, because we need to be able to target this and be able to kind of build our kind of approach around that. So is it overthinking? Are you checking too much? Are you getting stuck on one question? Or is it even an attention issue? Are you daydreaming? So time management is really important. And you might be thinking, well, why is it important? Well, firstly, it's going to reduce your stress. If you can work on your time management skills, if you can have a strategy that you can implement, then you're going to find the whole exam process much less stressful. Okay. It's also going to ensure that all questions are attempted. We don't want to at any point leave a blank space when we're working on our tests. We want to make sure that we've got every question at least attempted. Even if you have to make a guess, you want to make sure that you've got something on that page. Okay. And also, time management is going to enable you to prioritize the easier marks first. So the first thing we're going to do, guys, I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes. We're going to have a little look at this short extract here. Okay, so this is from The Railway Children by E. Nesbitt. So I'll read it out loud, okay? So the train thundered past, rattling the windows of the small house by the tracks. Roberta pressed her nose against the cold glass, watching the steam swirl into the grey morning sky. The letter had not arrived. Again, she sighed, knowing they would have to wait another day, another week perhaps. But hope, like the railway itself, stretched endlessly into the distance. Okay, so what I just want you to do now, just for a couple of minutes, guys, I want you to just work on understanding the 5 W's. So that's the who, what, where, when, and why, if you can. Okay, so try and just spend a couple of minutes now working out what the 5 W's are and try and put that information in the chat for me. Okay, right. So some good answers in the chat. What we're going to do now is we're going to start working on some questions. Okay. Now you've got 3 minutes to try and answer these questions. What we're going to do today, we're going to work on a couple of these kind of quick fire responses where you can start to kind of build up your answer. Okay. You've got 3 minutes to answer these questions. What does the phrase swirl into the grey morning sky suggest? So really focusing on that verb swirl. Inferring, why does Roberta sigh? What do you think Roberta's waiting for? So some prediction there. Where is Roberta when this scene's taking place? So you're going to try and find that information. And then I want you to try and summarize the passage in 1 sentence. Okay, so nice and quick. Try and work on this for 3 minutes. Okay, let's check our answers, guys. Okay, so the phrase swirl into the grey morning sky, well, it suggests that the steam is kind of moving in circles, blending with the sky. Why does Roberta sigh? Well, she's disappointed that the letter has not arrived. What do we think Roberta's waiting for? Well, possibly a letter from a loved one or some kind of important news. We can't just say a letter. We've got to say, obviously, sort of who the letter's from. Okay. Where is Roberta? Well, she's inside a house near the railway, as it says here. She's in a small house by the tracks. Summarize. Well, hopefully we've got a good summary here. A girl watches the train pass while waiting for a long expected letter. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to show you is just a little table that I just want you to make some notes on and copy down. Okay, so I'll just give you a few minutes now. There's some different time traps that we kind of fall into when we're working on our exams. And I just want you to have a little look at some of the solutions that you can start to implement yourselves when you're working in these cases. Okay, so the first thing is spending too long on one question. Okay, I'm going to get onto that in a moment, but what you can do is you can obviously move on and make sure that you do, but return later on. Okay. The next is overthinking. How many times do we look at a question, we think, okay, hang on a second, have I done this right? And then your mind starts to race, okay? Trust your first instinct. The other side, rushing through, making mistakes, okay? You want to make sure that you're pacing yourself, you're checking keywords, okay? And also the big one, running out of time before finishing, okay? You want to plan how long you're spending per section. If you have an exam that is, say, 80 marks, you've got an hour and 10 minutes. So you've got basically 70 minutes. You've got nearly a minute a mark. Okay, so that's just some things to kind of start thinking about. I'm just going to give you just a couple of minutes to just start jotting down some notes based on this table, just so you can start to kind of think of some strategies that you can include. Okay, right, so let's move on. Now, the first thing you want to make sure you're doing is reading that extract twice, okay, as a minimum. And this is where your daily reading is going to come in, okay? The speed that you read at will be useful in an exam, and that's why we want to start building that up outside of the exam time. So we want to make sure that we're reading every day now, half an hour minimum, really, so you can build up that reading speed so that when you hit that exam, you can read the extract twice comfortably as a minimum. Okay, one strategy that I like to do is we read the extract first of all, look through the questions, and then we reread that extract whilst annotating, going through, checking, underlining, making sure that you've kind of sort of located where the information is, so that when you answer the questions later on, you're not having to kind of flick back and forth. Okay. Now, the 4-step exam time plan. Okay, skim the paper. 1 to 2 minutes. This is going to be kind of before you really do anything, okay? Look at the whole paper, spot tricky questions. Easy wins first, okay? So you're going to answer those simple questions quickly for fast marks. So if you are getting a bit kind of stuck on these kind of longer 3-mark, 9-mark questions, you've got to do a bit more, Just answer the easy questions first of all, and then you can give yourself more time to answer these higher level questions. So again, here later on, the PE, the petal style answers that require kind of a more developed response, you've got to allow yourself time to tackle those. Okay, you've got to make sure that you've got enough sort of time in the bank to approach these questions where you're using evidence to back up what you're saying, you're going through, you're making sure that you've got everything answered in good time. And then really, we want 5 minutes at the end to review. Okay, that's going to be allowing you to check for missing answers and also for silly mistakes that might have been made. Okay, so just make a little note of the 4-step plan. I'll just give you a minute or so to do that. Okay, right. So let's move on to another little time management section here. Okay, so we've got here, sorry, just very quickly, we'll move on to this one first. So the 2-minute rule. So if you're stuck for more than 2 minutes, move on. This is what I often say. If it's a larger question where you've got more than sort of 2 or 3 marks, this doesn't really apply. But if you've got a simple question that is 1-2 marks, if you're spending more than 2 minutes on that, you need to move on. Why? Well, it's going to stop you from panic freezing. It's very, very common that if you have an easy question that you can't get the answer to, it can just completely knock your confidence. Okay, we don't want to be panic freezing. We don't want to be kind of stopping and kind of getting a bit worried about what we've got to answer, which is going to have a knock-on effect for the rest of the exam. Okay, if you can't answer it in 2 minutes, move on. What it will also do is give your brain time to process subconsciously. Okay, so that's going to allow you, if you are kind of working on other questions, you might suddenly get that kind of eureka moment where you can go back and you've subconsciously kind of thought about that in your head whilst answering other questions so that you can get that answer. Okay, so really, as a rule of thumb, 2 minutes. Okay, now we're going to work on, just give me 1 sec, a quick task here. Okay, so we're going to have a little look at this question here, which is going to be just sort of another time management question. I'm going to read this out for you, and I want you to try and have a go answering these questions within the time frame here. Okay, so Ella stared at the clock. 30 minutes left. Her hands shook as she turned the page. 2 more essay questions to go. She'd spent too long perfecting the first answer. Her mind raced. Should she rush? Should she abandon neat handwriting? Should she bullet point key ideas? Every second felt like a ticking reminder of failure. Taking a deep breath, she made a decision. Structure, speed, focus. The clock ticked on, but now she was in control. Okay, right, guys, you've got 5 minutes to answer these questions. Think about everything we've gone through so far. I want you to try and have a go at trying to build up your confidence from some of those strategies that I've just shown you earlier on. Okay, 5 minutes, see what you can get. Okay, cool. Right, let's have a look at some of these answers then, guys. So what does ticking reminder of failure suggest? Well, it suggests pressure and stress, as if each second passing brings her closer to not finishing. That ticking reminder, every second, it's kind of bringing her closer to not finishing. What can we infer about Ella's exam strategy? Well, she's spending too long on early questions and she's panicking about time. This is her early strategy, okay? What do we think she's going to do next? Well, she's going to start writing more efficiently, using shorter, structured answers. What 3 things does she decide to focus on? Structure, speed, and focus. And then a summarizing question here, guys. A student realizes that she must adapt her time management to finish her exams. Okay, so just going back to here, one sec. I want you to have a quick recap of what we've just done. Okay, 2 minutes. Try and think about what you've just looked at. Okay, what was the 2-minute rule that I mentioned? Okay, I want you to try and name a common exam time trap. And I want you to try and think about what should you do in the first 2 minutes after reading. Okay, just think about what we've just gone through here, guys. I'll give you a couple of minutes to answer these questions. Okay, hopefully you've got a few ideas there. So the 2-minute rule, as I mentioned earlier on, one sec, let's go back to that slide, is here, I believe. Yeah. So 2-minute rule, if you're stuck for more than 2 minutes, move on. Okay, and that's going to stop you panicking. It's going to give you time, your brain time to process. Okay, now hang on one sec. Where are we? This one. The common exam time trap. The next one here. One of the time traps that we hopefully wrote down was here. There. Okay, so any of these are the time traps that I mentioned before. Okay, and then lastly, what should you do in the first 2 minutes after reading? After reading, skim the paper. Okay, skim through it. So read it, skim through, make sure the first thing you do is you're looking through all those different questions there. Okay, good stuff. Right, now let's move on. So what I want you to do next, we're going to look at a high-level question. Okay, so these high-level questions can come up. Looking at that task we've just looked at, the question might come up something like this. How does the author create tension in this passage? Now, this could be a high mark question where you've got to use evidence to back up what you're saying. So we've got to use some PEE. So PEE, point, evidence, explain. Make a simple statement about what the writer does, give some evidence from the text to support your point, and then explain how those keywords get those effects. Okay? So what I want you to try and have a go at is using some of these sentence starters to answer this question. But before we do that, we're going to think about some of the connotations from what we've just read. Okay? So looking at this text, what aspects create tension? Well, the short sentences here create a sense of urgency. Stared at the clock, 30 minutes left, you know? We've got rhetorical questions that create a feeling of panic. Okay, we've got these repeated usages of time-related words: structure, speed, focus, clock, ticked. Yeah, rush. There's lots of words associated with the idea of time moving very, very quickly. Okay, so I want you to just make a couple of notes on these just to get you thinking, and then we're going to have a go at working on this. Okay, so I'll just give you just 1 minute to have a little look at this, write some notes very quickly, and then we're going to have a go at answering this question. Okay, right, so let's have a little go at this question. So 3 marks, I'll give you 3 minutes. I'll give you a minute a mark, as you would probably have in an exam. Okay, try and answer this question for me. Okay, right. Now I'm going to give you a model answer for this one going forward. So the writer uses short sentences to show a tense moment. That would be your point. The text states her mind raced. That would be your evidence. And then the explanation. This suggests a feeling of panic and, or I'll put and twice there, and urgency. Okay. And that's explaining the evidence. Okay. Now that would get you 3 marks. Okay. You've mentioned a technique, you've given me evidence, and you've explained that as well. Okay. Right. Our final activity now, guys. You've got one more task to look at, which is here. Okay. So this is from The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf DeBelly. Okay. And I've adapted this for you. So in high pressure situations, people often focus too much on one problem, losing sight of the bigger picture. This is called focalism. In exams, students may fixate on a difficult question for too long, leaving no time for easier marks. Instead, the best approach is to manage time wisely, allocate minutes per question, move on if stuck, and return later if time allows. Okay, now you've got some questions here. I'm going to give you 5 minutes again. Try and remember all these strategies we've mentioned here. Let's see what you guys can get. 5 minutes. Okay, let's have a little look at our answers here, guys. What does the term focalism mean in this passage? It means getting stuck on one thing and forgetting other important tasks. Okay. Why do some students struggle with time management? Well, they focus too much on hard questions. They don't move on. They waste time. What might happen if a student follows this advice? Well, they'll spend their time wisely and get more marks overall. 2 strategies that the author suggests for managing time: allocating time per question and returning to hard questions later. And then finally, a summarization of the passage. Students should avoid focusing too long on one question and spread their time effectively. Okay, so hopefully you've enjoyed that session today, guys. Please like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I've been Tom Harrop, founder of TJ Tutors.